everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to continue our Gheenoe restoration videos. Today's all about the front hatch. Just some important things that I have to go through first. One, I'm not a boat builder. Two, this was just my COVID project. I really wanted a boat. I was sick of wade fishing and kayak fishing. So this was my way to be able to get out on the water and get farther. I did not know anything about boat building on the way into this, and I learned a whole bunch. These videos are specifically designed to help you overcome some of the hardships that I went through trying to figure out all this stuff at the beginning. So if they do help you, please subscribe, like, let me know down in the comments. I just want to share some of the stuff that I learned because this was a huge undertaking. Okay, today's video is sponsored by nobody because I don't have sponsors, but Gheenoe's awesome, unless you fall out of it, because yeah. So today's all about the front hatch and what I did to be able to create this front hatch. The first thing I had to do was figure out how big I wanted this hatch and what I wanted it to hold, right? So I needed it to be able to hold a full-size marine battery, all of my electronics. I needed my emergency bag with my tools, flares, all of my emergency equipment, personal flotation devices, and then some dry equipment, like some dry pants and a couple of rain jackets. So that was the main thing that I needed to be able to hold. Extra rope, odds and ends, and it ends up fitting everything with lots of extra room, and I do hold a lot of fishing stuff up here afterwards. So at that point, what I had to do was come up with two walls. Those two walls ended up being the main supports. I wanted to be able to have enough support to stand up here. So those were able to transfer the weight from the actual deck down to the bottom of the boat. The next thing I did was actually build out the inside of the box. I got the floor done, I got the front done. I used the battery that you see in these pictures as like a gauge so that I knew exactly where I wanted everything. From there, I put in the rod holders, which are PVC pipe that you see sticking into that area on either side of the dry hatch. In front of that dry hatch is the area where I'm keeping my anchor, which I don't need that to be dry at all. So the next thing I did in those spaces on either side of the dry hatch and where those PVC pipes are that are my rod holders, I needed foam. So what I did was I got a 2-part pour foam and I filled both of those cavities with foam. I used garbage bags to help kind of keep it from running out everywhere in case there were any leaks in my fiberglass where I secured the walls to the actual bottom of the boat, just because I know I make accidents and that happens, and it ended up keeping it really well. As you can see in these pictures, I then trimmed the foam and was ready to figure out the lip to my dry hatch. Making the lip to this front hatch was one of the most challenging things of the entire redo. It was very complicated for me to comprehend how to create this. After a lot of research and a lot of attempts to take the shortcut out by buying a hatch that was already ready made, I ended up designing something. But the entire reason I didn't use a pre-made hatch, one is because I wanted the flat look on the front of the boat. I didn't want an off-colored plastic hatch on there. And two, I'm really cheap, and if I did buy a plastic hatch, it would cost me a lot of money. So this was my other option. As you can see in these pictures, I designed basically a negative of what I wanted the lip to look like. I covered it all in plastic wrap and trash bags so then it wouldn't stick. I laid my fiberglass on there, and then I created another press to go on the other side of the fiberglass covered in plastic also, and then weighted the entire thing down with bricks. Once it was able to cure, I cut off all of the extra and made sure it was going to fit, and then I ended up sealing it to the bottom part of the front deck where I wanted it to go. Whenever I was ready to seal it to the deck, I used that as a template on how big to actually cut my door. By transferring that design onto the bottom part of the door, I had a perfect hatch that fit exactly into those grooves. I put edges on the anchor door just so that if I ended up standing on this, I would have full support as well, and that way it's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, in the back of the boat, I got the old Livewell cut to size and fiberglass in. I cut 2 hatches in the back, but like I said before, I didn't actually end up using either one of those. Originally, I had this hatch on, but I was not smart and put it on facing the front of the boat so that it got caught in the wind while I was driving somewhere and ripped the door off. So something to consider, to have your hatches either open from the side or from the back, just so that driving wind doesn't rip off your hatch. Originally, this boat had a seat in the front, a seat in the back, and then a seat in the center. But the middle seat was completely taken out except for a small part on the bottom. That left a layer of support that I was missing in the middle of this gunnel, which made me really worried because I didn't want the boat basically folding under tension when it was hitting waves. So what I did was I ended up basically from up here in the front all the way to the back, on either side, I put a chunk of foam in and then molded it to the side, and it was about this thick, and I fiberglassed over it to give it one more layer of support so that the side wasn't basically relying completely on the rail as a place of support. The next thing I had to worry about were my hatch edges. Now, originally I cut them directly out of the deck, and when I did that, I had exposed foam on the inside of the actual deck and the inside edge of the door. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I took the cheap way out on this. 100% I should have basically cut down the door an extra amount and then did an overlaying fiberglass on the entire thing to give it support. I didn't do that. I just didn't. I didn't want to take the time. I got lazy. I wanted to go fishing. So what I did was I scraped out the foam in the edge all the way around, and I filled it full of epoxy resin. Mixed with the shredded fiberglass bits. So yes, it does have complete fiberglass coverage, but it doesn't have the strength that I probably should have done. That would have given all of the door or the hatches a lot more strength, but I didn't do it. But don't be like me. Learn from my mistakes. The next thing I did was I took Total Fair, the 2-part epoxy putty, and I went over every part of the inside of the boat that was not smooth. At this point, I could really see the end in sight. So I'd kept the old rails on, basically because I'm messy and I know that I am going to scratch or paint them, and I didn't want my new rails to get nasty. So I flipped the boat over with the old rails on it, and I put a primer coat and 2 regular coats of paint on the outside of the boat. Later on, I reflipped it over and did a new coat of paint on the bottom and the sides, but I used airboat paint for the bottom. It's super slick, and it was probably the best thing that I put on the boat because I don't actually have to be in the water now to push the boat off the trailer. I can just push it and it just slides right off. It also has a really nice thick abrasion resistance so that if I accidentally hit an oyster bar, it's more likely to bounce off instead of leaving a deep gouge in the paint. So well worth the money if you can get it. After the paint was dry, I was super excited because it was time to do all the fun stuff. So I got the new rails on, which if you go over to Titusville, you can get those. I did that at the very beginning whenever I got my Air 60 or my Air 60 foam, because they were right next door to each other and I was making the trip anyways to buy the foam. I got my drainage holes in, I got a new plug in the back. I ended up getting all my hatch doors installed with stainless steel piano hinges, and I got my seal to my front hatch put in. I got the lights put in, even though I didn't do the electric, and I got my rod holders finished. So at that point, I was ready. The first couple of times I took the boat out, I actually had the trolling motor on the back with the battery in the back until I could get the 4 horsepower Tohatsu. If you guys are interested in seeing more videos like this, because I still have to do the wiring in the boat and fix the transom, let me know, because this is really fun for me. I get to share stuff with you, and hopefully it's useful and gives you some help and some shortcuts on how you can restore your own boat and what to do. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch, and I hope you guys have a great day and get out there and fish. Let me know what kind of projects you're working on. And if your Gheenoe is an old lady like mine is, she's as old as I am. So between all of our aches and pains, I think we're doing pretty good. Have a great day.